son is racing.
Welcome, race fans, to another episode of the Rubbin' is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR Show for the Federated Auto Parts 400 from Richmond International Raceway. This is the last race before the chase. It's all on the line for those drivers trying to sneak in or those trying to hold on to one of those coveted chase spots. But before we get into all the racing action, it is opening weekend in the NFL, as you can tell from Adrian's gear and my hat. It's time to give a shout out to the sport that got us all involved in DFS to begin with, that got us into DFS NASCAR eventually. So shout out to my Kansas City Chiefs. They will be 1-0 after this weekend. Adrian, I'll let you shout out for your Panthers too.
Yeah, by the time everyone's watching this, the game's probably already happened against Denver. I just really want to wish the team good luck this year. This is going to be the ultimate rebound story when Carolina returns to the Super Bowl this year to take what is rightfully theirs. So let's bring it home to Carolina.
All right, and one other house cleaning procedure that I have to do as a Star Trek fan. It is the 50th anniversary of the original episode and original airing of Star Trek. It's really cool. I just want to give a shout out and rest in peace to Gene Roddenberry and Leonard Nimoy and all the others and Star Trek Nation and all the Trekkies. Live long and prosper. Adrian, get us into the race, buddy.
That was a very fitting tribute, Poppa, but let's get back to what everyone came here for, and that's the racing action. Richmond is a 3/4 mile D-shaped oval, pretty much known as the action track. That name is given to a lot of short tracks in the Southeast, but Richmond just kind of fits the bill as far as the short track goes. The turns are banked at 14 degrees. The front stretch is kind of a little more narrow at 8 degrees, and then as you come off turn 2, that's kind of going to be the funnel point where everyone kind of comes together, and on these restarts, that's where everyone's kind of going to get stacked up as back straightaway is only banked at 2 degrees. The biggest thing here at Richmond, in lieu of any kind of fun facts, I just kind of want to make sure, and we both, me and Poppa and Jamie, who couldn't be here with us today, all want to kind of touch on is this race is bigger than kind of DFS. This race is the culmination of the entire 2016 Sprint Cup Series season for these guys. You look at the drivers who are locked in the chase, who don't really have anything to worry about. They can go out here and they can win this race. They can, put anything out there on the line to win this race. And then you guys who just basically need to finish the race and they're into the chase. And those are the guys who are going to be the guys who are just going to try to manage the race. And they're not going to do anything crazy and probably won't pay off the salary. And then you have the guys who are just going for broke. The guys who didn't have the successful seasons, they're still in the top 30, and they could pull something off crazy, any kind of miracle, and make their way into the chase or the win. And that's what we're going to be watching for this weekend, guys. The chase is the biggest thing that you want to focus on this weekend. It's more important than any kind of practice they'll run this weekend, any kind of qualifying. You need to look at the chase grid and kind of look at how each driver's mentality is kind of focused in going into this weekend, because it's the most important weekend of their season. Homestead will, kind of top that as we get later on in the season. But to this point, this race will, kind of determine the entire season. It's very important. I cannot stress that enough.
No, and I think you're doing a great job of telling our listeners why it's important and why you want to focus on it this week. And just to add to that, there's only a 10% chance of rain, so rain's not really a factor. It's going to be a hot, humid southern night when we go racing Saturday at 7:30 p.m. on NBC Sports Network. So we're back off the main network to the sports network this week. With that said, it's time to burn some rubber, baby. And I'll do it for Liehr since he's not here. Burning rubber, baby! That was weak. I'm terrible at that. We got to get him back.
He plays a key role in our show, and it's noted by right there. We need you back, Jamie. Jamie is working hard tonight, guys. He wishes he could be here with us, but the man's got to put food on the table. So, guys, to get back to the racing, my pick this weekend to burn some rubber is a guy that I talked about last weekend, and I had a lot of exposure to this guy last week. Guys, I'm taking Denny Hamlin in the number 11 FedEx Toyota for Joe Gibbs Racing. I mean, this guy is consistency at its finest. I mean, if you look up consistency in the definition, you'll see a picture of Denny Hamlin right beside it. I mean, the guy, generally doesn't do anything spectacular, but what he does is exactly what you need from what his salary is. Over 20 starts at Richmond International Raceway, he has 11 top 10s. That's an over a 50% clip, which will definitely pay off his salary if you can get a top 10 out of him. I just don't understand why, he's not right there priced with Carl Edwards. The guy's only cost $9,500, and Carl Edwards and those guys are right around $10K, and I think Denny kind of deserves to be up there. He already has 3 wins on the 2016 season. He has 4 races over his career at Richmond, where he's led over 200 laps. A few of those were even over 300 laps. If he can get out front, he can get the job done, and he's, someone who can take care of his car. He has over 50 fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 starts in 2016. It just seems like the simplest play, in my opinion. Denny Hamlin is just usually a guy who just sneakily gets those fastest laps. He doesn't usually lead the laps, but he's always got great pit stops, and it keeps him right there up in the top 5. And he's just a lock for a top 5 if nothing happens. Every week, in my opinion. This is just the week that I'm going to be all over Denny Hamlin. There's a certain combination of guys that we'll get into a bit later. But Denny Hamlin is my play this week, guys. I think Denny Hamlin's going to bring it home. He's from Chesterfield, Virginia. He would love to win at Richmond International Raceway to get his 3rd win. It's just the right play, in my opinion.
Yeah, Denny Hamlin is one of 3 of the dominators that I have, just owning this race this weekend. And if you look at track history and current form and how they perform year in, year out at this track, I think Hamlin is a must-play this week for all the reasons you said. There's no real reason to expand on it more. There's another JGR car that we'll talk about here in a little bit, and the affiliated ride that is also in play. But dude, you're just right. Hamlin should be one of the anchor guys that you're designing lineups around this week. And with that said, one of the other guys that you need to be building anchor lineups around this week is my first burning rubber pick, and that's Kevin Harvick at $10,700. I know he's super expensive, but Harvick tends to do one of 2 things in the NASCAR for DFS players that we love and helps you win races and win contests. And sometimes he even does both. He will either sit on the pole and lead enough laps to make him a must-play, or he will way underqualify, work his way through the field, and gain enough place differential points, that he's a must-play on that end. I think that unless you're trying to be cute with his current form, there is 0 chance that you can fade him this week. I mean, guys, he would have won last week's race in an utter dominating fashion if it hadn't been for a air gun misstep. They still don't know what was actually wrong with the air gun, but that cost him that race. He's in his career here, he has 3 wins, 10 top 5s, 19 top 10s, and has led, just like Hamlin, over 1,000 laps at this track. That is unheard of. I think you just want him in this grouping. Since he's been with Stewart-Haas, he's had 3 top 5s and a 2nd place here and sat on the pole here. It's only a matter of time before he gets a win in that Stewart-Haas automation car. I think it happens this week. I'm all in on Harvick, even though he's expensive.
That price tag is well worth what you pay for it. I told everyone to pick Kevin Harvick on the show last week, and if you listened to me, you pretty much had a guaranteed cash. So you threw in some of the other guys that we recommend, definitely a good race in Darlington for you. Kevin Harvick is just a must-play, just like Poppa said, for all the exact same reasons. Due to current form, Kevin Harvick is way ahead of these other guys, going into the chase. He's just so fast. I don't see a way that Kevin Harvick he's going to guarantee, in my opinion, he's guaranteed to be one of the top 3 cars in the race. And pretty much if he does that, he's going to at some point have a pit stop where he gets out and leads 50 laps. I mean, it's just the nature of the beast. There's a lot of laps. There's 400 laps here at Richmond. So there's a lot of laps to lead, and you want to stack the dominators. And just like we talked about, Denny Hamlin's name being beside consistency in the dictionary, if you look beside dominator, there's a picture of Kevin Harvick.
Yeah, man. I really think that's accurate. And you can not be a Kevin Harvick fan, but the form and the way that guy's tearing it up for DFS purposes, you've got to be on him. Who's your second guy to burn some rubber since we're a man down with Liehr?
I'm taking Jimmie Johnson. This guy was someone that we were all over last weekend when he was running the Dale Earnhardt throwback car at Darlington. He kind of drove over his head a little bit, he said, to try to get his lap back, but those are the things you do when you're trying to win a race, as important as Darlington is. It's just Jimmie Johnson's team isn't going to lay over going into the chase. I feel like they're going to try to, throw a shot over the bow and show these guys what they're coming into the chase with, because they really haven't shown anything over the long hauls so far this summer. Jimmie Johnson was quoted as saying this has been the toughest season of his career. This season is just something that Jimmie and those guys were prepared for it, but I guess they didn't expect it, because they were kind of, at one point, the Hendrick guys were pretty far off from the Joe Gibbs guys, and I think they're getting close with these new cars they're bringing to the track. Jimmie Johnson has a top 10 in his last 4 starts at Richmond, which is a great consistency, 9,200. That's super, super cheap for a 6-time Sprint Cup Series champion and someone who has 3 wins at this racetrack, including a sweep of the 2007 races. it's just a perfect play in my opinion because he is so cheap and because he could be one of those dominating. It's the kind of track where you have to manage your tires over a long run. And Jimmie Johnson and Matt Kenseth, he's just, those two guys are just part of that group of guys who can really, really outsmart people on a long run. So I'm taking Jimmie Johnson just because I think he's going to outsmart some of these guys and really take care of his car and be there at the end. I think Jimmie Johnson can definitely finish in the top 5.
Yeah, here's the thing. I don't have a problem with the Jimmie Johnson play. The problem I'm having is the opportunity cost of playing Jimmie Johnson versus the other drivers that I want. And if you go with a 2 or 3 stud theory this week, you have to trade off one of the guys that either Hamlin, Harvick, or the next guy I'm going to talk about. And I'm not sure I want to do that in a lot of instances, like on a 2 build or on a 3 build lineup. And so I just find myself more times than not fading Jimmie because that team's just had a run of bad luck. And it's not that I don't think that he's capable of running. It's just that everything seems to go wrong every race for that team this year. And until they get it figured out, I think it's an easier fade. But you're going to get extremely low ownership percentage, and I love where your head's at here.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Like, just you saying that, like, it kind of convinces me even more of the play because I'm hoping more people have that same mindset that you just kind of displayed there. I'm really hoping that people are going to be off of Jimmie Johnson because of the horrible run he had last weekend at Darlington. And you can sneak Jimmie Johnson in at sub 20% ownership. I think you're having a good night.
Yeah, like I said, though, I have to trade off with someone, and I don't want to trade off with my next burning rubber pick, which is Kyle Busch. I got to bust out the M&Ms for him. At 10,600, I understand he's outrageous, and I've literally recommended the 2 most expensive drivers for the week. But I think if you roster them, you're going to be happy with my recommendations here. Since 2006, he has 9 top 2 finishes here and 4 wins. Out of 22 starts, he's only failed to make the top 10 6 times. Oh, and he's a 1,000-plus lap leader, just like Hamlin and just like Harvick. I don't think there's any choice but to run Kyle Busch this weekend. He's also one of those cars that's in a position where we know that JGR Racing has cars set up for the chase, so they don't care. They're all in. It doesn't matter where they finish. They can go out and race to win this thing. And just like you liked Hamlin, I think you need to be on Kyle Busch. And honestly, I don't have a problem for those of you that say that you want to be on Truex coming off the win, and he's super cheap. So what are you writing down there, Adrian? You got something for everybody to show? Chalk. Fair enough, dude. I'm as chalk as it gets. All right, what do you have to add to the Busch play, bro?
No, I just want to say, I just think it's one of the simplest plays. Like, people are not going to play Kevin Harvick and Kyle Busch together because they're like, oh, they cost so much money. But, that's why Michael Annett shows up and puts his fire suit on, boys. I love the Kyle Busch play. He costs that much for a reason, just like Kevin Harvick. And he is so good at Richmond. And, if you look at the previous races, over the years at Richmond, and you look at maybe just watch the final 5 laps, I guarantee you about 70% of the time Kyle Busch is a deciding factor and he wins the race.
Yeah, and see, that's the ultimate issue with NASCAR. If you think it sounds like we're repeating a lot of these same drivers on tracks, it's because we have to. The nature of the sport, there's clearly a group of guys that are dominating, and you have to pick and choose or sandwich them together to get the right winning GPP lineups in DFS NASCAR. And that's why we stress this. Like, guys, if there was any chance I thought Kyle Busch wasn't to play, believe me, I wouldn't recommend him, like, a lot of the times. But he's just that stone cold of a lock that I think that, in all probability, that's stone cold of a lock that I think you just want to be on him. But since we've clearly shown you that we like to spend money this week, I think we need to help you save some money. It's time for value plays. Adrian, give us some value plays, brother.
Oh, can you guys guess who I'm rolling with? That's right. I'm going to be fueled by bacon this weekend, guys. I'm going to be rolling with Eric Almirola, the number 43 for Richard Petty Motorsports. I just feel like this is, like I talked about, it's one of the most important weekends of Eric Almirola's season. It comes down to this race. If he can, it not only secures him, if he can win this race at Tuesday, it not only secures him a spot in the chase, but it might also secure him a contract. Eric Almirola's name has been kind of floating around in these, silly season rumors for next year. And if you can win a race like this, it can really put all those rumors to, kind of put them to sleep. If you look back to this race last year, where all these guys are trying to throw Hail Marys naked into the chase when the car's to win, Eric Almirola finishes in 4th, guys. That is like David taking down Goliath. If you kind of look at his salary and a 4th place finish, that would be incredible if that's something he could repeat this year. Mm-hmm. He has nothing to lose, and in my opinion, he is the ultimate sleeper play. He has some, 20th place finishes here. But what I'm really looking at Eric Almirola this weekend is he's only 6,100, and he's already shown me in 2015 that he has a 4th place upside at this track. Showing he can take care of his car for 400 laps and be there at the end. He does not want to miss the chase 2 years in a row. And he's one of those guys that has to win to make it into the chase. And just like I talked about the chase being the most important factor this weekend, that's just why I'm picking Eric Almirola, because he has nothing to lose and everything to gain.
Yeah, man, I love it as a value play, and I don't think a lot of people are going to be on it. A lot depends on the qualifying of all these guys that we're going to recommend on value play, as we have to film this before qualifying. So remember, like, if somebody overqualifies, don't roster them just because we talked about them. But I think that if anything is an indication, he's going to underqualify here, give you positive place differential, and at that price tag, it's just going to be somebody that you have to be on. I think it's going to help you win all the money, and that's just the way there is to it.
I love winning all the money.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't? All right.
It's my favorite thing.
My value play, guys, this week is a little controversial, and one of the reasons why I chose him is I wanted to be able to argue this out with Adrian for all of you to watch, because I think it's important to have this discussion, and it's an important discussion for NASCAR DFS. I'm recommending Chris Buescher at 6,700. So DraftKings has keeps creeping his price up, but it hasn't adjusted enough to compensate for how many fantasy points he's been giving you on a weekly basis. I don't also think that it's compensated enough for a car that is borderline being chase eligible and has a lot to race for this weekend. Now, in my theory, all stops will be pulled out this week to guarantee that this car makes it into the chase. Now, this can break down 2 different scenarios. If he overqualifies, don't play him. But I don't think he'll overqualify this week. I think he'll qualify more towards the back and try to finish mid-teens. If that's the case, I think he's a play. Now, Adrian's going to tell you that he has nothing to race for except being in front of Brian Scott, correct?
No, David Reagan.
David Reagan, sorry. My bad. But other than that, like, if he finishes ahead of him, it's over and done. Fair enough. I just don't think that they're going to play where's David Reagan on the track.
I really, I can definitely see your argument about Chris Buescher, and if he qualifies really low, if he could qualify past the 32nd position, which I don't know that he's going to qualify that bad because he is, in Roush equipment, and he should theoretically be bringing the same cars to the track that Iffle, Bane, and Stenhouse are. So I don't know that he's going to qualify that bad. I honestly think that he'll qualify somewhere around 17th or so. In my opinion, all he really needs to do is finish top 25. And I'm not going to say that they're going to sandbag. They're definitely going to take it easy on the restarts, let everyone spread out, and then settle in log laps. And that's basically going to be their whole strategy. And Chris Buescher knows how to do that because he won the Xfinity Series Championship in 2015. So he knows how to points race. This isn't his first time doing that, guys. At 6,700, I'm not going to say that he's not someone I'm going to play. I mean, there's other guys, like I said, the guys who are trying to just have a finish to make it into the chase, like Chase, Austin, and Jamie. Those guys necessarily, because they cost almost $8K. I'm not Chris Buescher, he's only 6,700. So because he is so cheap, it makes it where he might be someone that you could play, but that kind of depends on qualifying. He's one of those fast cars who obviously needs to keep his car clean for the whole race, so he's not going to put it in any bad places that could potentially end him up in the garage. And at his salary, all you really need him to do is finish around top 20. So I don't hate the Chris Buescher play. No qualifying.
Yeah. Like, basically the number I had for qualifying is anything sub 20. Like, if he qualifies sub 20, in my opinion, he's a play. Like, and the further back he goes, the more percentage I will own him as a play. So, Adrian, second value pick for us this week, buddy. Who you got?
I got Ryan Blaney in the number 21 for Wood Brothers Racing, guys. This guy has just been so fast this season, and some of the luck he's had has just been so sad to watch because he's had some of the fastest cars at Bristol. You look at, when he was running the Virginia Tech car, the guy hung around the top 5 all day to end up getting crashed out at the end. And he just has this competitive fire that I really like about him. And in my opinion, if anyone is going to win the race this weekend that isn't already locked into the chase, it's going to be Ryan Blaney. He has nothing to lose. He can't make the race in on points. If you look at someone he's battling in the rookie of the year points like Chase Elliott couldn't make the make the chase by just riding around. But Ryan Blaney has to go out and win the race. And that nothing to lose mentality and the sort Ryan Blaney is with, and honestly, you think Penske's not going to bring a good car for the Wood Brothers so that the Wood Brothers can make it into the chase, hopefully? I just really see everything lining up for Ryan Blaney. I mean, the guy doesn't even have to win to pay off his salary because he's only $7,200. So all you really need is a top 10 out of Ryan Blaney. If we're talking about Ryan Blaney as in the conversation to possibly win the race, it's almost a given that he's going to finish in the top 10, guys. He has over 40 fantasy points in the last 2 races in 2016. He's just one of those lock and load guys. When you're loading up on the guys we talked about like Harvick, Hamlin, and Kyle Busch, you just play guys down the list like Ryan Blaney. He's just such a safe option in my opinion. And a guy who I feel like is going to go out here and possibly get the job done. I mean, I think Eric Almirola can have a good top 10 run, if everything goes right. But I really think that Ryan Blaney could actually win this race.
Right. It's almost like we're doing this in alphabetical order. Like we went from the A's to the B's. And you know what? I don't have a whole lot to add on the Blaney play as long as he doesn't overqualify once again. And I don't want to be a broken record on that. But you're right. He just seems to keep putting together solid races and has the ability to win here. And that I'm just going to go ahead and give you my value play, which is the Killer Bees extension again. We got Busch or Blaney, Bain at 6,900, Biffle at 74. The 2 Roush Fenway cars specifically have nothing to lose and will be going all out for a win. As just like you said about Blaney, it's their only way to get into the chase this year. Of the similar price cars, only the guys we've given you, and maybe with the exception of Paul Menard, have even a remote shot to win this race and squeak in the chase that way. This is how we envision the race breaking down. That's why we're all over these guys. We've used these guys as sources of value to get it done, and the place differential is almost always there from these guys. The really interesting thing for me on Biffle is because he's screwed over so many people last week, his ownership percentage will be way down. And every time we've played him coming off of a bad performance, it's just free money. Adrian, your thoughts on the Killer Bees of value?
A little bit biased to one of the Killer Bees because he's my favorite driver. Source of value that we found over the 2016 season, as long as they don't overqualify, and they've generally been qualifying around the 25th position, it just seems to be the right plays, guys. I mean, it's just basically, it all depends on qualifying, and we're just trying to give you the guys that we think are going to be the ones who could actually move up through the field. And honestly, we think these guys are fast enough to where qualifying maybe isn't even as important as you think it is for these guys. I think that Ryan Blaney could be even a play starting in the 11th position. Before, he started earlier this season, a few races ago, he started 6th, I think, and he finished 4th. So obviously that team has the speed to get it done. The Killer Bees have been plays we've made all season long. And I don't see that stopping this weekend just because it fits the same mentality we've been kind of trying to stress this whole show. And it's the fact that they have nothing to lose. They're going for the win. They're not going for 12th place.
Yep. That's why I'm all on them and why my roster. Not to mention their salaries just fit perfectly, especially when you're trying to do 2 stud lineup builds. It works really well. That pretty much wraps up value. We've given you a ton of source of value. Now it's time for the Going to the Garage segment. Time where we get to talk trash on drivers, on cars. Maybe it's on DraftKings price. Maybe it's on the situation, or maybe it's we just don't like them in the race. And I think that's pretty much how it is this week. We are in utter agreement. I'm going to let Adrian take it away and send all of the cars that we have going to the garage. Just list them off, brother.
All right, guys. So just like we said, the Chase, this is the final race of the season to make it into the playoffs for the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series. And I'm pretty much just going to cover the entire Going to the Garage segment right here. And I'm just going to give you our short list of drivers that we're not going to play. We are not going to play Chase Elliott. We are not going to play Austin Dillon. And we are not going to play Jamie McMurray. And I'm about to tell you why. Because if you look at the Chase bubble, you have Ryan Newman, who was just assessed that 15-point penalty for failing post-race inspection last week. So that kept Ryan Newman from being 7 points behind Jamie McMurray. So now he is 22 points behind Jamie McMurray. That means that Jamie McMurray all he has to do is go out there and finish 22 spots better than Ryan Newman. That means all he has to do is pretty much finish top 20. And he really only needs to finish top 25 unless you think Ryan Newman's going to finish in the top 5. And then you look at Austin Dillon, he's 31 points to the good. So all Austin Dillon really needs to do is, and Ryan Newman can't even win and beat Austin Dillon. And then you have Chase Elliott, who really just needs to fire his engine, go out there, and finish the race. And that's why I'm not going to play any of these guys, because they have nothing on the line except for finishing this race. When they talk in their meetings all weekend, the main strategy is, how can we get this car good over the course of a long green flag run? because all they need to do is finish this race. They're not going to stuff it down 3 wide on a restart like Joey Logano was going to do because he already has his wins. There's just too much pressure. This is the culmination of the entire season. Like I said, these guys are not going to go out there and just phone it in and ruin, and risk their entire season. It's very important that these guys make the chase for their sponsors and everything. So a win is not quite as important as making it into the chase. They're going to be riding around the 20th position. I think these 3 drivers are going to be right around, 18th, 19th, 20th. And that's just going to be the story of the race. It's like watching those 3 guys that are just going to be bunched together the whole time. And they just cost right around $8K, so it's just not a place to spend your money, guys. Buy some studs and then throw in killer bees.
That's my theory too. With that said, it's time to start. It's time to build the lineup like we do every week. We're a man down without Liehr here, but Adrian and I should be able to formulate one for you. Adrian, we're pretty much in agreement that we want Harvick and Hamlin on this team, right?
I think those are going to be the guys that are going to be, the dominators of this race.
All right.
And the third person, it just is going to kind of depend on if you want to spend up for Kyle Busch or if you want to try to get someone around Jimmie Johnson or Truex's price tag. But like we've kind of talked about earlier when we were trying to talk about how many studs that we liked this week, let's say you win GPPs in a 400-lap race because you've got to get the guys that, even if they lead 30 laps, you need them.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and throw Truex on this lineup. That gives us a little bit more salary to play with, and it'll let us show a little bit more flexibility with some of the plays. All right, so if we roll Harvick, Hamlin, Truex, we're left with 6,833 per driver remaining. Who would your next pick be, bro?
Man, I gotta say Ryan Blaney. I just love to play.
All right, Blaney at 72 leaves us 6,650. I think you're gonna play that. I'm gonna use your other pick, so I have the last pick on this lineup. We're gonna throw Almirola on this team as well at 6,100. That leaves us with 7,200 to pick any remaining driver. Now, here's the dilemma that you're gonna come down to. You can play Bain, Busher, the Dinger, Menard. It's between those guys and reaching down to the likes of Mears, Regan Smith, Castle. Where would you lean in that grouping?
It's not a place that I'm going to play Clint Boyer because I don't think DraftKings has had his price tag right all season.
Well, notice how I just left him out of the discussion. I was just like...
yeah, basically. Yeah, this group of guys under Clint Boyer is like a group of guys who one of them is going to finish in the top 15 and hurt your lineup. It just depends on which one you think it's going to be this week. And in my opinion, if I'm at this point right here, I'm picking Paul Menard and leaving money on the table.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Paul Menard usually underqualifies, and I like his consistency.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I wouldn't have a problem either with the Stenhouse play if you wanted to go there as the third Roush Fenway car. I that. You basically summed it up the best way you could. You're going to have to guess which one of those, and without us having qualifying data to determine which one is the best of the place differential potentials, the Menard play is just as good as any of the rest. Let's just recap this lineup real quick. It's Harvick, Hamlin, Truex Jr., Blaney, Almirola, Menard. It's a good one. I really like it. It's very similar to a lot of the ones I have.
This is the BAM lineup because Blaney, Almirola, Menard. This is the BAM lineup.
There you go. Bam. All right. Well, hopefully it will bam us into some cash this weekend. Remember, guys, don't copy that lineup in these contests. There's 4,705 lineups. You can make your own. We just do it to help you get the part of the process and see the process of how you want to go through pairing your guys, thinking about place differential value with race dominators. It's a very important process, and that's what we try to show you here on the show. With that said, it wraps up another episode of the Rubbin' Is Racing Daily Fantasy NASCAR Show. I want to thank you, as always, for spending time with us. We know it's your time that you were sacrificing to listen to us talk about our love of NASCAR and DFS, and we appreciate it. Remember to like, share, favorite, and subscribe. Tell your friends to do the same. And Adrian, say your goodbyes, brother.
Thanks, everyone, for watching our show again this week. We really appreciate everyone's viewership. We're really loving all the comments and everything and all the Twitter interactions. So keep it all coming. Like we said, our Twitter handles are in the description. So get in touch with us this weekend, maybe after qualifying. If you have any questions about maybe Almirola qualifies 7th and you're wondering if I still like Almirola, send me a mention and I'll answer your question right away. Or same thing goes for Poppa, and even I'm sure Jamie will be available to do the same. thanks again for watching, everybody. I'm really looking forward to Richmond. I think it's just going to be a really exciting race, and I think we're going to have a surprise winner this weekend.
Yeah, and once again, I want to thank, while we're heading out, all of you guys for participating and commenting on Twitter and on the YouTube page. Like, we have the most watched DFS NASCAR show, and we have the most engaging DFS NASCAR audience, and I really appreciate that, and we want to give you all props, because you all are what makes that happen. With Chunk smiling, we'll say goodbye. Remember, we've got the football show that you can also check out if you're looking for DFS football action, as it takes place the day after this race. So get all your action that you need for the ultimate fantasy football three-way. And maybe we should have had Adrian join us with all of his Panthers gear, but I'm afraid he would have homered out and not been too much of a fan since it wasn't on the Thursday night.
I would have just picked Devin Funchess, Kelvin Benjamin, Greg Olson, and Cam Newton, and that would have been my team.
You'd have lit money on fire in DFS.
I would have left all the spots empty because those guys would have got enough points. It wouldn't matter.
All right, man. Later, guys. Thanks for tuning in, as always. Peace.